Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Odin's Call YouTube channel where we talk about stuff. I love you, I respect you, and if I have to, I will protect you. And I mean that. And everybody who knows me in real life knows that is true. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about a really interesting experience that I had when I lived in Germany, in the little shack that my best friend and his girlfriend lived in behind her parents' house, the girlfriend. It was a fascinating experience. So stay tuned, pay attention. It's weird. If you like the video, please demonstrate that you like it by liking the video. If you hate the video, like it anyway. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do, because I love you. And I'm occasionally amusing. And my stories are pretty cool. Anyway, let's get started. So the year is 1995. I'm 16 years old. I live in a foreign country. I lived in Germany for a few years. My stepdad was in the army. And he was based in a little tiny base called Illesheim. I lived off post in a little town called Bad Windsheim. And I enjoyed it there. I liked it a lot. In fact, I get homesick for it sometimes. I had a really chaotic childhood, so I moved around like a lot. You know, we moved every 6 to 12 months usually. And actually, the longest I had ever lived in one spot up until that point was in this house in Germany. We were there for almost 3 years. And I'd made friends with my friend Mike. His name was Mike Garcia. He was German, though. His father was American and apparently had taken off after he impregnated Mike's mom, but he still took American names. His English was really good, but he definitely wasn't a native English speaker. He worked on post with me at the commissary bagging groceries. And Mike's girlfriend, her name was Biggie. Birgit was her real name. We all called her Biggie. They were really super cool people, and for a period of time, they actually lived in this like little one room, basically a shack behind Biggie's parents' house. And there was no bathroom in there. It was basically just a room. They had a little space heater to keep themselves warm in the winter. And there was no air conditioning because almost no German house had air conditioning at the time. It was the open the window and never got super hot there. So, if it got up to 85 degrees, it was hot, but not unbearable for the most part. So anyway, one night, not long after they'd moved into this little shack behind Biggie's parents' house, I had gone over to hang out with them, and they had a Nintendo Entertainment System, which was even a little outdated for the time. We were kind of into the Genesis days of things, but they had Tetris and a little known fact about Ragnar, which is me, by the way. I'm not Odin, I'm Ragnar. But Odin calls me, and thus, there you go, Odin. Anywho, side note about me, just interesting fact. I'm very good at Tetris, and I've been very good at Tetris since I was a little kid. I didn't know how good at Tetris I was until I played it at an arcade one day and ended up having a crowd around me because I always lived in kind of shitty neighborhoods, and the Game Boy with with Tetris was how I passed most of my time. So I was extraordinarily good at it, and when I realized that they had Tetris, I could go hang out at their house forever because I didn't have anything at home to play. So one day we're all sitting in the shack together and we're hanging out. We were just really good friends, and they were fun to hang out with. They were really cool people. And there's this fucking doll. I hated that doll. And I hated it even more after this particular evening. But there was this little like baby doll that apparently just casually moved around. So I'd been sitting there in the room. Mike and Biggie decided that they wanted to go inside to her parents' house because there was a free bedroom, and they had the urge. European life is cool. And I remember right before they left, I looked up and saw that this goddamn doll was sitting on the shelf. And another side note, I've always hated dolls of every kind. Every time I see them, they creep me out, and I don't know why that's the case, but they've always creeped me out, and they still creep me out to some degree. I don't have the paralyzing fear of them that I had when I was like 10, but I don't like them. I don't like them at all. But whatever. It's a little baby doll thing, and it's sitting up on the shelf, and it's kind of got its legs dangling over the side, and it feels like it's looking at me, but it's a doll. Everything, but whatever. Anyway, so as I'm sitting there and I'm playing the game, and I glanced up and I saw it, and then a couple minutes later I looked up and it wasn't there, and I looked over to my left and it was sitting in the chair, probably 6-7 feet from me to the left of me, and I'm like, holy shit, right? So I paused my game and I kind of, in a panic, run out of the goddamn room, and I'm outside in the cold, and Mike and Biggie kind of finished up whatever they were doing, probably enjoying themselves, but they come out and they're like, dude, what is wrong? And I said, fucking doll, that's what's wrong. And they're like, oh, no, it's fine. Biggie says, no, it's fine. It's my grandma. That's just my Oma, right? That is my grandma. Yeah, I speak German too, by the way. Because if you live in somebody else's country, you should learn how to speak their language so you can get around and ask directions and all that kind of fun stuff. But anyway, I digress. So she is just nonplussed. She does not care. She's just no big deal. It's my grandma. She just, she apparently occasionally resides within the doll. And I go, yeah, people don't do that. That's not a thing. She says, well, where was it when you left? And I said, it was sitting in the chair next to me. She says, oh, I bet it's not there anymore. And I go, what? Okay, whatever. So we go back in the room, and then, that sensation that you have when there's a couple of you, like you wouldn't want to go back in there yourself, but you feel just a little bit safer when somebody else is with you. Same thing like if you're watching a comedy movie, and if somebody's not in the room with you, it's not as funny as it is when there's somebody with you. Like, I don't know what that is, but it's an interesting thing to pay attention to. But sure as shit, we walk back into this room, and the goddamn doll's back up on the shelf. And I'm just, oh my God. Right? That is creepy. And they're just, hey, I thought it was in the chair, Ragnar. And I'm like, no. Yeah, that's where it was when I left the room, but apparently it went back to where it started. And they're like, yeah. I told you, it's my grandma. It's not something to be worried about. And I'm like, all right, whatever, And I start, rationalizing, maybe I didn't really see it in the chair. Maybe it was up there the whole time, And I start kind of making excuses for myself because it was one of those unexplained things. And I try to use some logic and reason and rationality. And, I'm not really prone to, and I'm a natural skeptic while believing that those type of things really do happen, which I know is odd, but so I always kind of look for the Occam's razor situation first, right? There's a logical explanation for this. And sometimes there's not. But so we'd been hanging out for a little while again and, just talking and goofing off. And, interestingly enough, I missed those days immensely because it was so cool to just sit down and be content in other people's presence. And that's not something that we do very much anymore. We actually have to be engaging in something in order to have a good time anymore. And I think that's sad. But, hanging out with Mike and Biggie was just awesome experience. It was always fun. And then the girl that I had a crush on at the time, she came over to the house, Sonia, and she just stopped by out of nowhere, and that made me even less creeped out because any opportunity to be around the girl that I had a crush on was fun. And so she comes in, and I'm kind of sitting in the chair where the goddamn doll was, and Sonia's sitting on the floor. And Mike and Biggie are on their bed. And, it's a pretty small little place. It was probably, 70 square feet, not big at all. And they had a cage with like 5 rats in it that they had really well trained. And it was well decorated. It was a cool little spot. So Mike finally looks over at me at one point. He says, you want to see something really cool? And I said, no, because I could tell it was going to be creepy. I said, no, I don't want to see whatever that is, Mike. And he says, well, watch this. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Whatever it is, I don't want to see. Just stop. You know, it creeped me out enough earlier. Can we just continue having conversations and drinking beers and having a good time? Because I don't really want to do whatever this creepy thing is. He says, no, 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 no. You got to see this, man. You got to see this. And I'm like, so he gets up. He turns the lights off. TV's still on, which had now been changed to some soccer game or something. And it's now dark. And he turns the light off on the TV, or turns the TV off. And it was one of those old TVs where when you turn it off, it kind of, and it zips down to a little point in the center. And, you know, I talked to my stepfather about this at the time, who was he's an electrical engineer. He's a smart guy. He says, yeah, of course, you know, those old TVs, it all kind of zooms down to that point. And sometimes it'll kind of mess around for a little bit until things dissipate and whatever. He explained it way smarter than I can. But what happened after that was unbelievable. I was like, what the fuck, right? So I'm looking at it and I'm telling him, yeah, I've seen that before. That's not a big deal, man. And then this point of light kind of starts to open up a little bit. And I go, what the fuck, right? Okay. And you can see it. It's the kind of the edges are kind of starting to shimmer a little bit. And as it continues to get bigger, it appears to be an eye, like a human eye, eyelids. And, it's still at the time I'm trying to rationalize, it's just dissipation of the electrons or whatever, right? I'm a 16-year-old brain is trying to rationalize whatever I'm looking at. But I look over at Mike and I'm like, yeah, man, it's not that big of a deal. And I think I was trying to convince myself more than I was trying to convince him. And he says, no, get up and walk across the room. And I'm like, what? No, I'm not getting up. I'm not doing anything. He says, no, just get up and walk from the chair over to my bed. Watch what happens. And he's not concerned. He's not afraid of it. Whatever this thing is, he's not afraid of it. But I am, and I don't want to. But because I don't want to look like a pussy in front of my friends, I'm like, all right, fine. So I get up and I walk over to the bed, and this eyeball that's embedded in the screen, made out of light, has now formed like a pupil right in the center. And as I walk across the room, the fucking thing follows me. Like it's looking at me. And I'm like, dude, right? I look over at Mike and I don't want to look away from the screen because I feel like something's just going to manifest right in front of me and I don't know, eat my face or something. But Mike's like, I don't know. It's cool, huh? And I'm like, no, it's not cool at all. In fact, I'm going to go home now. And I'd appreciate it if you'd walk me home. So whatever this is, has to fight two of us. That would be fine. He's like, it's fine. I see it all the time. It's not going to hurt anything. And Biggie doesn't care. Biggie's like, no, I think this is my grandfather. I think, and I'm like, okay, well, turn the goddamn light on, Mike. He says, no. Just wait a second. And then he said, by now this thing would have dissipated if it was, I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, I'm not smart enough. That's okay. I accept the fact that I'm not smart enough. So it's there for a while, like way longer than it should have been if it was just the light fading out. And then it just kind of, I don't know how, it like blinked off, but it kind of shot to the side of the screen at the same time. And then I feel this weird, almost like a wind, like a light breeze inside, but it was cold. It was really cold. And the chair that I'd just been sitting in, I looked over at it and there's just this misty white kind of an outline of a person that was just slightly glowing in the dark. And mind you, at this point, if you've never been in the country at night with the lights off, you don't understand what darkness is. It's dark. It's about as dark as it can get. You can't see anything. And there are no street lights, where I was anyway. There were no street lights. There was no ambient light coming into this place at all. In fact, I don't think there was any light source other than whatever was happening on that TV. And then looking over, I could see this faint, slightly illuminated force thing sitting in the chair like a person would sit in the chair, legs on the floor, arms on the armrests. And at that point, I'm scared, but I'm also very interested in what I'm looking at. And I kind of walked over to it, and for some reason, and I was no longer registering whatever this was as some kind of potentially malevolent thing. And I walked over and I kind of ran my hand through it, and it was like sticking your hand in the freezer, right? It was cold. It was really cold. And I mean, the difference in temperature between outside of this misty figure and inside this misty figure was probably a 30-degree differential. It was cold. And I kind of jerked my hand back from it like, that's weird. But it didn't respond at all. And Mike goes, sit down in the chair. And I'm like, that's fucking no. I don't want to sit in the chair. And he's like, just sit in the chair. It's awesome. And I'm like, oh, you've done it before? And he's like, yeah, it's awesome. And I'm like, and again, you know, peer pressure being what it is, I don't want to look like a pussy in front of my friends. And he says he's done it, and he seems to be all right. So I sit down in the chair, and I'm just enveloped in this cold hug. I don't. It was not scary. In fact, whatever fear that I had at that point, it kind of dissipated to a general level of comfortable interest. And after, 10 seconds or so, I felt the temperature begin to regulate, and whatever this thing is that I'd allowed to envelop me kind of dissipated. It was just not there anymore. And I looked over at Mike, who's got this big shit-eating grin on his face, and he kind of flips the light on, and he's like, "That's cool, huh?" And I'm like, "No, it's really not that cool. It's interesting, but that's weird, brother. And whatever's going on in here, you need to figure out what it is, because if that thing has bad intentions, you might have problems. It's moving shit around the room. It's manifesting in physical form in a chair, and It's manipulating your TV to make you see things that, I mean, that's if that's an entity of some kind, it's a scary one, And we can go into why I know that and why I have that sensation and why I believe that at some point, but I don't think today's the day for that. But whatever that thing is, it could move things, and it could manifest in physical form, at least enough to be recognized. And that's intimidating. That's big. It's a big deal. So, sorry, not feeling well, and I'm not editing that because I'm lazy. Anyway, I saw many things like that, and I saw that eyeball situation, several times when hanging out at Mike's house. And it actually made me really less prone to go hang out at his house because it was just weird, and I didn't like the idea that I was in the presence of some invisible being every time that I was there. He actually ended up moving into an apartment a few months after that, and that was a little bit more fun. But it was fun. It was cool. It was interesting. And I can't say with any level of certainty what it was, but I can tell you it was weird. And if it was a hallucination of some kind, it was a mass hallucination because everybody saw it. So, and I would put it past Mike and Biggie to be able to manufacture that incident. Neither one of them, I don't think, really had the intelligence to produce a falsified version of that. But I can tell you that TV was off for sure. But it was still showing the eyeball that can follow you around the room. Weird. Anyway, I won't beleaguer the point any further, but it's just an interesting story, and I don't have a conclusion for it other than to say it was weird. I love you. I respect you, and if I have to, I will protect you. I love you. Thanks for coming to my channel. Like the video. If you didn't like it, like the video. And if you did, like the video. And if you do like the video, subscribe to my channel because you like me and I love you. See you on the next one.